Oh, that's real good.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our channel Penny Lesson. We talk about everything finance, from tips on making money and proper investing to news about the different economies and situations affecting the global markets. The goal of this channel is not only to teach you how to be more financially responsible but also to teach you how to be more aware of global events. So why not just sit back and relax while we tell you what's happening in the finance sphere? Be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell to be constantly updated on my latest videos. Remember, one penny lesson a day keeps being penny less away. In the early 1990s, India's economic development began roughly at the same time as China's. India's protectionist policies for its domestic industries and its immensely convoluted system of permits and regulations that all enterprises had to follow were the main things that were being eliminated. Governments will put these regulations into place to adequately safeguard their regional sectors. There are many protectionist policies, but the most prevalent trade limitations like import tariffs or quotas. The advantage in this situation is that most consumers would choose to buy domestically produced goods even if they were slightly inferior to those made abroad simply because they were less expensive. This means that domestic enterprises will almost always have a consumer market, enabling them to continue operating and maintaining jobs for their employees. Protectionist policies suffer from two significant issues. The first issue is that they raise the cost of everything for consumers. The cost of artificially inflating the costs of the imported items will be passed on to consumers. However, it also allows domestic producers to boost their prices while still being competitive. The extent of import taxes and levies may also result in increased business costs for components that go into finished goods. Although certain economies may theoretically approach independence, doing so would be extremely expensive. As a result, importing goods is almost always necessary for economies. A producer will also need to pass on this cost to the final customer if import taxes must be paid on all components they eventually incorporate into their product. In practice, you are exchanging higher prices for more significant employment and self-sufficiency, but doing so will reduce the cost competitiveness of those items, which will result in price inflation in domestic markets. The second important issue that protectionist measures in the form of trade barriers can create is that economies cannot deal with the impact of this artificially increased price on their ability to compete internationally. By extracting essential elements like resources from the ground, a nation can add value to its products. Although this produces a lot of riches, it is ultimately unsustainable because those resources will run out. Additionally, resource extraction needs small labor. This indicates that margins are high, and there is a high likelihood that a governing class and some fossil fuel businesses will use such resources. Nations can also create value by importing those raw materials and converting them into components or finished goods. This is merely production. Manufacturing is better for the economy than most natural resource extraction since it uses more laborers per unit of value output. This results in more jobs being distributed across a larger population, which develops a middle class and makes overt exploitation more difficult. Because manufacturing doesn't rely on selling off a supply of finite resources, it is also far more sustainable than resource extraction. A nation with a continuous supply of raw materials to import and a steady market for the goods they make may generate cash from this industry virtually indefinitely. Unfortunately, it isn't necessarily how things work in the actual world. Manufacturing-based economies are subject to changes in global economic conditions due to imports of raw materials and exports of finished goods. Manufacturing alone, without the addition of more sophisticated services like design, and marketing, is a never-ending downward spiral. Imagine that something generates value for the economy without being extracted from the earth or produced in a factory. Then it would most likely fall under the broad category of the service industry. Because it is sustainable, The service sector is essential to modern economies. Imagine that each of the two nations had a single plant. One country is devoted solely to manufacturing. To enable the bringing in of resources and the shipping of goods, they make significant infrastructural investments. They can become the obvious choice for foreign businesses trying to outsource manufacturing because they also have a labor force willing to work for low pay. They will receive a lot of business, but as a result, their employees start to become wealthy enough to demand more significant compensation. Contrast this to the other nation, which still has factories but a robust service industry with businesses with internal design and marketing departments. These businesses will be able to produce their goods and demand a high price. The incomes of the entire economy will rise, even though the majority of the value in this example is being created in the service sector. As a result, workers in the manufacturing industry will be paid more to create more complicated goods and add more value. An economy can sell knives and forks at a bit of markup over the cost of the raw steel if it uses basic manufacturing to transform the metal into those things. Instead, imagine that an economy uses its service sector to create a cutting-edge, specialized piece of aircraft or medical equipment from the same stainless steel block. It will then be able to sell for a lot more money. Since the wages of factory workers make up a significantly smaller portion of the final cost of the items, they will be given much less consideration. However, everything here is related to India and its potential for future growth. Most people believe China to be India's greatest worldwide opponent, but that isn't always the case. They may compete in various markets, and they probably will. Despite all the sovereign concerns associated with China, especially in recent months, it is challenging to outsource services to China. English is not widely spoken among the inhabitants, and their corporate culture is significantly dissimilar to that of the West. But India has been a terrific location to outsource services since trade restrictions and the licensing raj were lifted in the early 1990s. We now return to our call centers at this point. These two industries would resemble one another entirely if we were to directly compare contact centers in India to manufacturing floors in China. They are both low-wage jobs that primarily serve the interests of foreign corporations. These sectors of the economy are comparable to entry-level positions globally. Only the manufacturing floor and the call centers at the international headquarters of Fortune 500 companies offer entry-level positions. It isn't easy to transition manufacturing floor occupations into anything else. In contrast, even entry-level careers in the service industry may be transformed into ones that bring more excellent value with training and experience. The gap between the formal and informal economies also raises the possibility of a two-speed economy, in which competent English-speaking employees will form a distinct class and earn substantially more than the remainder of the population who labor in the informal sector. Even if this wouldn't necessarily influence the headline GDP figures, we want economic growth in the first place, since it will raise the standard of living for those who work in that economy. However, there is excellent news to report. According to a report released by the Indian State Bank, the informal economy's share of the nation's total economic production dropped from 52% in 2018 to barely 20% in 2021. Government initiatives to make operating a lawful business and getting employment simpler contributed to some of this drop. Another motivating factor was that many informal laborers went out of business during clandestine breakouts. In contrast, their counterparts in the official economy could continue to operate from home or secure workplaces. The economy of India is nothing but untapped potential. Its populace is young and educated. It can profit from China's economic stagnation and enter markets that other developing economies would find very challenging to enter. The critical question is whether the government can persuade businesses and investors that India is a secure and profitable place to invest, while simultaneously providing its people with the resources they need to become wealthy on their own as the country becomes prosperous. Wow, was that news? Why not ponder it? Want to know the latest? Comment if you want more articles like this. This video is just one of many videos on my channel that brings you the latest news about the world of global finance and economics. So go hit that subscribe button if you don't miss out on content like these. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. Thank you for all your support, and I'll see you again next time. Remember, one penny lesson a day keeps being penny less away. Cheers.